Mm. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to our lunchtime chat. Today's topic is talking about dream jobs, and the title is Help My Dream Job Keeps Changing. So, I want to stop and first say hello to everyone watching from different platforms. Hello on YouTube, hello on LinkedIn, and hello on Facebook. Thank you for joining me today. We won't be together for much longer, but I just wanted to take some time to talk about this topic. As a pivot strategist, I come across a lot of really intelligent people who find themselves asking the same question: what do I do if my career path has been changing and it's been changing all the time? And so, to put you at ease, I want to first start off with a little bit of a story time. So, I always want an opportunity to tell this story because I think it's really important for everyone to know that if you are at a point in your life where you're considering a career change, whether you're in your mid career or you're close to retirement, first of all, retirement clients are some of my favorites because they've done all these great things and now they're considering a career change or a life change. So their pivots are especially exciting, but that's aside. So I want to kind of share with you my journey. You all know me now as a career and life coach, but before that, I had about a couple different careers before I got here, and I want to keep it front and center that it is okay for your career path to not be stationary. And so I will give you a quick story time. So I was one of those people who didn't know what I wanted to do. My dream job was changing every other day, especially when I was a kid. And as a kid, I kept saying that my dream job was to help people. And the only way I knew to help people was to be a doctor for some reason. And so I said, oh, I want to be a pediatrician. I remember I took chemistry in freshman year and bombed it and was like, oh, maybe science is not for me. So I pivoted from there. But when I was in college, my last semester of college, all my friends were figuring out where they wanted to go. And I still had no idea where I wanted to be or what I wanted to do. And someone sat down with a Teach for America recruiter and they were giving out free lunch. And I was kind of offended. Why isn't anyone giving me free lunch? Why isn't anyone asking me to lunch? So I invited myself to lunch with a recruiter. And they sat down and talked to me about teaching, something I had honestly never considered in my entire life. I come from a family of educators. My grandfather on my mom's side was a headmaster, like a principal, but I'd never considered education for myself. But I thought, okay. And I went through the whole Teach for America recruitment process and I became a teacher. It's like I woke up one day and, like, oh, all of a sudden I'm in charge of sixth, seventh, and eighth graders. And I was teaching them math and reading enrichment. First of all, I used to really hate math, so I don't know how I became a math teacher, but I taught middle school. And so I was a teacher. And then I started to think to myself, I think I want to go to grad school because when I was a teacher, I cared a lot about access, making sure that people had access to resources that they needed in order to really thrive. And so I went from being a teacher who had a lot of gates that my students had to kind of jump through and hoops they had to jump through in order to get a good education to being on the other side. And so then I went to graduate school and I studied communications, something I'd studied in my undergrad. And this is the funny thing. I didn't even know where I wanted to go to school, but I knew that Teach for America had like a scholarship with a few different schools. And one of the schools had a double master's program. And I thought, oh, I want to get two masters. Let me just do that. I had no plan on doing this, but the only school that had the double master's and the scholarship was Syracuse University, a place that I had never been before. And I literally knew no one who knew of it, except I went to a party once and someone was having like a tailgate and they're like, hey, go to this Syracuse school because it's pretty cool. So I said, okay. And so I went to Syracuse and then I was close to graduation and still had no idea what I wanted to do after graduation. And I was kind of sitting at home and applying to jobs. And all of a sudden, this job opportunity popped up to be a part of admissions for the comp school that I just graduated from. And I thought that wasn't my original plan, but that could work. Okay. So I took the application, I did it, and I got through. I got the job, and I was like, oh, I guess I'm working in admissions now. Keep track of what's going on. I went from education to working still in higher education, but now this time in admissions. And so I was in that role and I wanted to make another change. And I thought, okay, what can I do next? I applied to this random job that was in human resources. And the person that hired me said that they hired me because my previous job had done recruitment and diversity. And they were like, oh, we do recruitment too. And I was like, no, I did a recruitment for admissions. And you're thinking of recruitment for HR. And they're like, yeah, same thing, right? And so they hired me to do recruitment for human resources. And so that's how I pivoted from secondary education into higher education into human resources. And from human resources, I realized I really love learning and development. I really love developing people. And so I want to do more of this. And that's how I pivoted from human resources into uh, coaching. And so that's where I am now. If you're not dizzy, you should be. But I hope you also heard in my story that you are not married to any career path. That's the next point I wanted to make to you. Oh, oops, my slide there. You're not married to any particular career path. I think this is the, let's see, 1 second. So it's because you're not married to any particular career path, I want you to think about how it is okay if you change your mind. I think sometimes we get really, there we go. Here's my slide that I was looking for. I think sometimes we get really fixated, right? Oh, I did so much work. I went to graduate school. I put so much effort. And what if all of my effort goes down the drain, right? And many of us have degrees that we haven't used and we're kind of salty about it. We're forcing ourselves to try and use those degrees, right? I do believe that everything we learn is this culminating body of experience and body of expertise that we will get to use one day, even if it's not in the ways that we expect. And so I want to say that so you can release yourself from any kind of obligation that you have to your old career path. Yes, I know you have certifications there. If that path no longer fits you, it's okay to let it go. It's okay to pivot into something that is better fitting. And so that takes me to my next point. I want you to know that you don't necessarily have to keep that same career path. I want you to actually think about not just following your dreams, but following your zone of genius. If you have watched any of my videos before, you might have heard me talk about the zone of genius. And zones of geniuses are the areas where you really thrive. It's your gifts and your talents coming together. And it's really when you have this flow and things just kind of make sense. I'll show you a quick graphic that makes a lot of sense in just a second. But a lot of times we've been sold this lie that you're supposed to just follow your dreams and then your dreams will yield really great results like the salary you want or the lifestyle that you want. The reality is that some of our dreams are dreams that we can monetize. And then actually, some of our dreams are hobbies that will not yield us any money in the end results, right? So I would say, if you are wanting to really find your place where you really will thrive, it's not just about following your dreams, it's about following your zone of genius. And so when we look at your zones of genius, there are things that you are uniquely wired to do that you are really, really going to excel in if you find those things. So I'll give myself as an example. For the longest time, I didn't realize about myself that I'm a pretty organized person and I thrive in places where it's almost like there's a barren land and there's nothing there. And I get to build something from scratch, from foundation. And so my zone of genius is in starting things and in building where there hasn't been anything before. So because I know that about myself, I didn't marry myself to one particular career path or even career industry. Instead, I said my function that I really excel in, or my zone of genius where I really thrive, is actually going to be a place where I can be the first to do something. And so I'm oftentimes what I would call an inaugural candidate for a role. I'm usually the first to ever hold a position. And that's kind of happened in most of my career. So when I was in admissions, it was a brand new role. And they said, well, we've never had this role before in quite this way. We added a few things to it, but we want to see how you can run with it. The role I had after that was another kind of hybrid role where they put things together and they said, well, we don't know how this is going to work, but we trust that you can help shape it. I know that about myself, that these kinds of areas are my zones of genius. So when there is anything experimental, I'm gun ho for it because I know I'm going to do really well. If you know your zone of genius, it helps you decide what kind of opportunities to accept and what kind of opportunities to say no to. Right. So I think it's really important when we have those things that we know about ourselves. I want you to look at this graphic right here. I love this graphic. Let me move out of the way so you can see it. And so this graphic here tells you how to really pursue something, right? If a thing is just simply a passion, or it's your mission or your profession or your vocation. So let's look at it. The thing that you are good at and you love, that thing, you see the overlap there in the Venn diagram, that is a passion. The thing you're good at and you love, amazing, right? The thing that you're good at and you can be paid for it, that is your profession. That's something that will bring you monetary value, right? Here's another one. The thing that you can be paid for and the world needs, that is a vocation, okay? So if you can find something in the middle that is all of those things, it is that thing that you're good at, the world needs it, you love it, and you can be paid for it. That thing is smack dab in the middle, right? And rarely do we find something that is all four of those categories. But I would say if you can find at least two and ideally three of those things working together, then you are likely on a path that will be sustainable for you. Not only will it be sustainable for you, you'll be able to keep doing it in your career, but you will find a lot of satisfaction in it. And I want us to start thinking of our careers that way. What kind of career path will give us the most satisfaction, right? And so I think it's really important to think about our lives and our careers in that way, right? And so I oftentimes will think about, what does it mean if I am doing a job that is just because I'm good at it? A lot of times I'll talk to my my clients, and my clients will be saying, yeah, I've been doing this career path because, it's something that I started a long time ago and I'm good at it. And I suppose I'll just keep doing it. Here is a spoiler for you. Just because you can do it doesn't mean that you should do it, right? Because we're talking about sustainability in careers. We're talking about longevity, being able to stay there and to really, really thrive. Ability does not a career make. Okay. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should continue doing it if it doesn't bring you satisfaction, if you don't feel like there's any kind of purpose or meaning in what you're doing. And so it's tough. Like I said, once you've gotten those certifications and once you've gone to this place of like, oh man, this is my area of expertise, everyone knows me for this thing. But I would argue that if you are somebody who has found something that you can do and you actually enjoy it, that's something that you're going to be able to last longer in than something that is simply there because you can do it. Right. And so I always want to bring that up to my clients. And sometimes they kind of hate that I bring that up. And I want to give you an example of one of my clients that I had. Let me move out of the way once again so you can see one of my clients. It's probably hard to see that, took a Harrison assessment with me. So my clients, whenever you see me, the first thing I'll have you do is to do an assessment with me so we can figure out where we are on a ground level. So my client was an architect. And my client wanted to figure out, some goal setting things. So we looked at some of the things that he could do that he would be satisfied doing in his life. The fascinating thing about my client is that my client is extremely intelligent and he could do just about anything, right? And I think it's so fascinating because when you find that you're somebody who can do anything, it can be sometimes even harder to pick a career path and stick with it and feel like, oh, this is the thing that I'm going to be satisfied doing. And so my client, remember, is someone who is more in the science field, but his skill set lent themselves to social psychologist, anthropologist, a career counselor, counseling psychologist. The thing that was popping up in all of these things, and notice the career satisfaction level on the right hand side is quite high. There's a high percentage, a high chance of being satisfied in his career if he were to do any of these career paths. There are some scientific things there, but there's also this side of him that is showing up, this very peer-to-peer, interpersonal type of thing that he would find just as much satisfaction in. So I bring this up to say, If you have not examined the other parts of your abilities and the other parts of your enthusiasm, it's worth looking to into as well, right? Because sometimes we're so used to seeing ourselves in a certain light. For example, if you've been a doctor, oh, I have a great example. A friend of mine who was a doctor, was going through medical school, and I knew him in undergraduate, and he was such a creative guy. And all of a sudden, he gets into medical school and he decides, I want to make films. Yeah, I want to make films. I don't want to do this medicine thing. And we had to get over our shock because we were like, you did so much work. You put in so much effort. But we also knew in the back of our minds, in our heart of hearts, that he would be really good at making films. And he was. He was phenomenal, right? Because he didn't just limit himself and marry himself to one career path and say, this is the only thing that I know how to do. I think sometimes we pigeonhole ourselves because we're thinking like, man, this is the only thing I know how to do. This is all I've ever done, and this is all I'll ever be. If you are starting to evaluate what else can I do, I really encourage you to get some help in thinking about what those other options can be. Obviously, I'm biased because I have my pivot strategy session where we use tools like the Harrison assessment. We can actually go through your career test just like you're in high school all over again. And we look at all the different things that can contribute to greater career satisfaction, right? And so, in the example that I gave with my friend is just like me, Nigerian American, first generation American, born to immigrant families. And I want to pause and give an ode to our immigrant families. If you're someone who comes from that background, a lot of times we are trying to make our parents proud. We know that they left their home countries, oftentimes going to a place where they knew nobody, starting from scratch to pursue their education and to also build a life for their children. And so oftentimes they sacrifice their own hopes and dreams, right? And so they unintentionally sometimes put some of that burden on their children to say, well, I couldn't do the thing that I wanted to do, so I'm going to invest in you in the hopes that you'd be able to live out the dreams and be the best that you can be. At the time, I remember, like, being Nigerian, I remember when we were growing up, there was this running joke that there were only a few acceptable career paths that you could go into: being a doctor, being a lawyer, an engineer, a pharmacist, or a failure is the joke. And so notice I am none of those things, and I still consider myself to be successful and consider myself to be in the right career path for myself. I'm grateful that my parents didn't subscribe to that, but I heard a lot of children of immigrant parents being pressured in that way, saying, you know, I am the only grandchild, and my grandfather always wanted to have a doctor in the family. So the burden fell on me as the firstborn. Or this is a silly example, but I am the descendant of the throne to Zamunda, and now I have to be the next king, even though I hate politics. Like, at some point, you have to kind of put a stop to it and say, I honor my parents. I have this really cute picture of my parents. I honor my parents, and I want to do everything I can to make them proud. And I have to acknowledge to myself, making them proud is sometimes me simply just stepping into my zone of genius and finding my own career path and running in that lane, right? And being able to pivot as many times as I need to. I think it's really important for us to think about our careers in that way, because sometimes when we're looking at the pivots, we're not noticing that these pivots, if you go back to this slide I had, these pivots are really just leading us to a door, right? Don't look at your life like a path that you have to stay on continually. Yes, you're running in that lane, but along that lane, imagine that lane is actually like a hallway, and the hallway has open doors on your left and on your right. And at any moment, they are opening up to you new opportunities. Oops. They're opening up to you new opportunities. And so you'll notice that many times you are able to look and see, oh, there's a door that I didn't expect to open. Most of my career was built that way. Opportunities that I didn't even know to ask for that were opening up to me because I was willing to just be in my zone of genius rather than being married only to one career path, right? So that's our talk for today. I want to pause, and I always at the end of these like to give a little bit of a sponsor break. Obviously, this video is sponsored by my coaching company, The Pivot Strategists. And The Pivot Strategists is really a great coaching company, if I do say so myself. But it's really my way of partnering with people as they're making these discoveries of, I'm on a path I don't want to be on. How do I pivot and get to the destination that I want to be on? And most times they find that that destination is really more of a journey of exploration. And I'm here to partner with them in that journey. And I have a few great tools, and they are my pivot journals and my pivot planners. I am really excited because in this season, I have a brand new pivot planner, which is like a mini version. It is really lovely. But these pivot planners have guided questions to help you consider what is your vision for yourself? What are your goals? What are your priorities? What's the life list of things you want to do? And it really helps you be focused for this coming year. And that's what I think is going to help us be successful, being focused on our own journey, not trying to make our parents live vicariously through us, not trying to make people happy with us because of the career paths that we've chosen, but finding the unique path that works for us. So if you are interested in exploring that, I have a complimentary coaching call. All you have to do is go to timmycomo.com/coach, and you can find all the information about that. The complimentary chemistry call is simply 15 minutes of us just talking about some of the things you're wanting to work on in coaching and seeing if there is any synergy there, and if you would be interested in working with me. So it's kind of like a mutual conversation where I'm figuring out, do I have what you need? And you're figuring out, do I work for you as a person? So I really love a good chemistry call, and it's just good to hear from people and just have a good conversation. All right, so that is our session for today. I want to say thank you so much for joining us for this Lunch and Learn. Leave me a comment below about anything that you are considering as you're shifting. Is your dream job changing? What did you want to be when you were younger? Tell me below in the comments. I'd love to know. Until later, I'll see you guys. Bye. Take care.